the subject. Oh, it got rained out already? You're more up to date than I am today, so that's great. So portrayals will be here. You could sleep here if you wanted to, and get an early, get the best seat, or just come back at 10:30 in the morning for the historic portrayal tomorrow morning. Tomorrow in Hoover, there's a classic country and honky-tonk band. It's called the Big North Band. That's at 7:30 p.m. in Hoover. Friday in Hoover, the Drowsy Lads come back to Lakeside. They're a family band. They do traditional Irish. It's an acoustic Irish band with fiddle, banjo, penny whistle, and some percussion. That's 7:30 on Friday. And then Saturday, a ton of folks are going to get up on stage at Hoover, and that's the OSU Alumni Band. So that'll be a good one too. That's also 7:30 Saturday in Hoover. So please check it out. Anything else? Grab a Lakesider. Go online. Online has all the updates and recent information. Lakesider gets published very soon, and you'll see those out. So grab that for all the thousands of things we do all summer. So with that, I'm gonna introduce the musicians. This evening, horn players Megan Amos and Emily Dietz have prepared music from Baroque and light classics to familiar favorites. Both are members of the Toledo Symphony, Amos being the principal horn player since 2019, and Dietz being a member of the horn section since the year 2000. In addition to their work in Northern Ohio, these musicians have shared their talents with numerous other symphonies and festivals across the country. So please give a warm Lakeside welcome to Amos and Dietz.
Hey everyone, can you hear us okay? Great, well thank you so much for coming out tonight, especially for joining us inside. But we're thrilled to play in this beautiful hall for you guys. My name is Megan and this is Emily, and you're looking at the French horn. We're both French horn players in the Toledo Symphony, and we've been playing together just like this, standing right next to each other for 5 years now. And we're just really thrilled to put on this duo recital. So that first song was by Telemon, and I don't know if anyone noticed, but me and Emily, we were playing the exact same thing, just slightly apart. Did anyone else catch that? Yes, so this is called a canon. So probably everyone knows a canon. Maybe you had it at your wedding. I did, the Pachelbel's canon, right? Same thing. It's where kind of one line is chasing each other. And something I really like about what we just played, the canon by Telemon, is you know, I went first and Emily followed me, and she's just such a great musician that I kind of just did what I wanted, did a little sporadic soft, and she echoed me or did loud or did nice and long, and she copied. And it's just really nice to play with you like that. So thanks for listening. Anyway, so yeah, we have a really good program for you guys tonight, something we've been working really hard on. And by the way, me and Emily, when we perform for audiences like this, we don't want it to be too formal. So if you guys have ever had any kind of questions about music or about French horn that we could answer for you, now is the time, because a lot of times we're stuck in the back of the orchestra, can't always see you guys. So if anyone has a question, feel free to ask. I know like sometimes in the beginning of the program you might be a little shy to ask right away, so no worries. We have a lot of music planned. And the next thing we're doing is from opera, and I'll let Emily explain a little bit about this piece.
So this is a really, it's famous. I think once you hear it, you'll go, oh yeah, I know that piece. But you might not know that you know it. It's called the Flower Duet from an opera called Lakme. I think the AC is, thank you, is having fun with my music. Okay, so this is the Flower Duet from the opera Lakme by Delibes. Leo Delibes was a French composer, so this was written in like 1883. And it's just a short little, beautiful little moment between soprano and mezzo-soprano in the opera. And it's these two female characters going and gathering flowers by the river, and it kind of has that kind of sound, like, oh, it's just so peaceful. And we thought it suited horn well, because as horn, oh, you're so thoughtful, thank you. Horn, a lot of times can do, is like, the things that horn is good at is often like what the human voice is good at too. Like, so vocal things often work very well for horn. So here we go, the Flower Duet. Did you know it? Yes. I thought you might. Okay, this next thing that we are going to do, just looking at my notes. Okay, are any of you horn players out there? Do we have any horn players? At least a few hands. Okay, so do you know the name Koprosh? If you played horn, you might know Koprosh. If you're a new horn player, they had this etude book called Koprosh. It's just a guy's last name, but it's like our horn Bible, and we play it, all these etudes, we had to study and study and study, and people like Megan and I, we know them by heart pretty much, because we did them so much. And actually people, like, through their whole career, they play out of this book because it's sort of like, it just, I don't know, keeps your technique good and stuff. And this duet is written not by the guy who wrote the etudes, but his father, Wilhelm Koprosh. And this was in like northeastern Germany in like 1820s, maybe early 1830s. It's a little fuzzy as to exactly when he wrote it. But he was a bassoon player, his dad was, and then he had this son who played horn. And at the time, horn valves were a pretty new thing. They were pretty new technology. So these pieces would have been written for kind of the new, horn 2.0 that people, that probably not everyone even had. Just a few people would have had a horn that actually could play all the chromatic notes that a piece like this calls for. So it would have sounded pretty different to their ears to hear horns playing chromatic notes and all the notes of the scale, as opposed to just kind of the open notes that you could play on a horn without valves. And so we're going to play this Koprash duet, and it's got 3 movements. There's kind of a moderato movement, a slow movement, and then a fast movement. And here we go.
Thanks so much. Does anyone have any questions about the French horn so far we can answer for you guys? No, nothing. Oh, yeah, right there. Yeah, okay. So, both of our horns are a little bit older in terms of French horns. Mine was built probably sometime in the 1970s. Emily's a little bit more recent than that.
In the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s. I play on a really cool French horn, actually. It's by a maker who now lives in, well, sorry, he's deceased, but he lived in Chicago, and the original owner of my horn now lives in Michigan. And only 19 of my specific type of horns were ever made, so I feel really lucky to play on it. And actually, a connection between me and Emily is that the original owner of my horn 5 owners ago was the maker of her horn, who, yeah, I know, it's so cool, who was pretty inspired by my horn's maker, his name, Jerry Lechniak. And he was actually served time in a concentration camp during World War II and then emigrated to the U.S. He was Ukrainian. So, yeah, great question. Our colleagues in the Toledo Symphony, one of them plays a horn from like the 1950s or 60s, and the other plays a horn that's probably less than 10 years old. So like, no horns are more than, I would say, 100 years old, but you know, the new ones are good too. So great question. It's not like violin where the longer it ages, the better. Yeah. Any other questions, or should we go on to our next song? Okay, great. Okay, what's next?
Yes, okay.
I'll get it set up.
All right, thanks. All right, I might, here, maybe I should take this off of here. Scary, scary. Okay, she's going to do a little configuration of this piece because it's both parts on the same. We're reading off the same music, and we need both stands to to read the whole thing. And so this is a piece, a movement of a duet that my husband wrote. He's a composer, Christopher Dietz, and he teaches at Bowling Green State University. He teaches composition. And this is a piece actually that he wrote for his colleague, the horn professor, Andy Pelletier, and another horn player. Not for me, but that's okay. I didn't ask. These guys asked him to write it, so he wrote it. But Megan and I are going to play the middle movement. This is a piece called Caccia. Does anyone speak Italian? Caccia. Anyone know what that means in Italian? Going once, going twice? It means hunt or hunting. So, and horn, of course, you've all seen those like old pictures of guys, you know, with their horns going fox hunting or whatever in England. Horns kind of have this association with hunting. horns were kind of used as like a signaler between, groups of hunters in different locations, and they would use these little calls, they'd like kind of a thing, to talk to each other, to let them know, oh, come over here, we're over here, we're going home, that kind of thing. There were different musical signals that meant different things. And anyway, so this piece is sort of, this is definitely a modern piece. It's an homage to that idea of hunting. And you will hear that the two voices sometimes were in unison, like rhythmic unison, like we're together, like we're kind of riding together. Other times, one of us is like chasing the other one, almost catching, but not quite. And I think you'll hear that too. Like we'll sort of like do some kind of a motif where we kind of like, chase each other. It's like kind of like the canon that we did the first time through, but not quite so literal. But I think you'll hear that too. And here we go. It's also in 6/8 and 9/8, which is also very typical of like a hunting horn, kind of dun 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 dun, that kind of a rhythm. So he's kind of using that too. So here you go, a little bit of Katja.
Okay, so now for something completely different, Mozart. Okay, so to be honest, I think Mozart is one of the favorite composers to play for a horn player. Mozart wrote 4 French horn concertos, a concert piece, a quintet with strings, and there's horn in pretty much every symphony, at least 2 horn players, which was big at the time. So Mozart really loved the horn, and he wrote these duets as well as the concertos for one of his friends in Vienna named Lutgeb. And oftentimes in the music, he would kind of play jokes on Lutgeb, and I don't know, he would write things in the music to make him look a little bit silly or something like that. So Mozart actually wrote 12 of these horn duets, but don't worry, we're not going to play all 12. We picked our 4 favorite, and we kind of picked ones that would be in symphonic form. So we have our first duet, which is kind of a nice upbeat thing. It's all about cadences, and what I mean by that is it has one of the horn players going in stepwise, so kind of descending stepwise, so it'd be like B-A-D, and then it has the second horn player going down an arpeggio at the same time, so that would be like ba-da-dee at the same time, right? And this was so typical of the classical period. This is all horn players did, was make these cadences at the end of phrases in the symphony. And that's for one specific reason. Basically, back then, the horns, they didn't have valves. And, you know, I bet someone in the audience is wondering why we have our hands on the bell. No? Okay, someone in the back. Yeah. So basically, before these valves, these 3 levers right here, we were limited to only what we could play with our lips, and that was about 15 or 16 notes. Do you guys want to hear what that sounds like? Okay. Someone count. Everyone in the front saw, no fingers involved with that. That was only the lips. So basically, this cadence that I sang for you guys, we could play those exact notes with just the lips without the valves. Now, the composers realized that if you put the hand and the bell in different positions, you could get more notes. That sounds like this. So that gives me my half step. But you guys noticed it was a different tone. So that's kind of why the classical composers, they kind of stuck with just the notes of the harmonic series. That's what I played you, those 15 notes. So anyway, long story short, this first and fourth duet is all based on this cadence called horn fifths. It's kind of its nickname. Then we have a really nice second movement and a third movement in minuet and trio form. So we really hope you guys enjoy these 4 duets by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Okay, so, by the way, anyone have any questions yet about the horn? Yeah. Gotcha, yeah. So, what she's asking is she's kind of used to seeing the marching band horn. That's actually a different instrument. It's called the mellophone. And yeah, I see our TSYO girls in the back, like nodding their heads, like, yeah, I play mellophone. The Toledo Symphony Youth Orchestra, Principal Horn, came to our concert, so shout out to you. Okay, anyway, but so the mellophone is different. You play it with your right hand, right? Yeah, okay, sorry, it's been a while. And it's horn players play it because it's the same embouchure, and it's just a little bit difficult to march with our French horns. They're a bit heavy. They weigh about 6 pounds, and they're just really awkward. And when you walk, it tends to like move around your embouchure, which is this whole area is called our embouchure. So that's why we don't use our French horns in marching band, and we would use mellophone instead. And I don't know, in my opinion, they sound pretty similar, but our horns, we like them a little bit better. They have a more round sound. The mellophone is kind of somewhere in between the trumpet and the trombone in terms of tone. So, great question. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, good. So, this next song, I'm sure you guys will recognize. This one or this one? Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, yeah. So, we're going to play two familiar favorites back to back. The first is called The Last Rose of Summer. Even if you might not recognize it by the title, I'm sure you'll recognize it once we start playing the tune. It's based off of a poem by the Irish poet Thomas Moore written in the early 1800s. It was The Last Rose of Summer, left standing alone. And we just really love playing this song on our instruments. I first heard the song when I was playing a concert with Renee Fleming. And just the way she sang it, it was just so touching to me. And you know, we found it in our just horn duet book, and we were like, we got to play this at Chautauqua. So here it is, The Last Rose of Summer. And then after that, we are going to play Scott Joplin, The Entertainer. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so here we go, Last Rose of Summer and Scott Joplin.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, any questions about horn or being an orchestra musician? Anything? Yes. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Horn is kind of in the more, like you said, in the supporting role of instruments in the orchestra. There's always a few horn solos, which Megan always plays beautifully. Um, uh, but, uh, but yeah, in general, we are kind of one of the middle voices. And actually, if you love the piece, you love the piece, and it's nice to just be part of it. Sometimes being in the middle of a great symphony is just really enjoyable. In a way, you can sit back and hear it more because you're not worrying about playing the solo part. You're playing a supporting voice. And actually, that can be really enjoyable if you like it. I don't know. What do you think, Megan? Do you agree?
I like playing solos. I can't lie. Yeah, actually, 2 months ago, I moved from Toledo to Columbus. I'm playing principal horn there as well in the Columbus Symphony now. And I kind of had this realization a few years ago. It's like, I should only take principal horn auditions because I really like playing solos. And I agree with Emily sometimes that it is a lot of pressure. And she's seen me kind of be really nervous before. But for me, it's worth it to kind of be able to have those solo moments every once in a while in the orchestra, and even sometimes to play in front of the orchestra. So, and like what you're saying, we're used to being the supportive role. It's true. Actually, horn is one of the most versatile instruments in the orchestra. Maybe this is just because I love the horn so much, but I always think that there's actually 5 families in the orchestra. There's the strings, there's the woodwinds, there's the brass, there's percussion, and then there's the horns. Because we're not really part of anything. Like, obviously, we're a brass instrument. We're made of metal. But we play with the woodwinds. We play with the strings. We play solos. So we're kind of our own thing, whereas those other instruments, they tend to play with their own instrument family only. So even though we're in a supportive role, we both feel like we are playing the best instrument. So yeah, great question. Yeah, we're biased. Okay, cool. Yeah, another question right here. Yeah, great question. I started when I was in 6th grade. I come from a really musical family. My grandparents were in the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, and so my grandfather was in the orchestra, and my grandmother was a soprano there. And so, like, music is in my family. Even still, though, I did play the cello when I was younger, and it just didn't stick very well for me. I didn't like it. And then later on, when I started band at my school, that's when I started playing horn. And I didn't even pick horn. My mother, she picked it for me. And I'm from a small town, and no one had ever played this instrument before. And my mom, she went to a parent-teacher meeting, and she's like, my daughter's gonna play horn. And the band director was like, I don't think so. It's really hard instrument at first. And anyway, she knew it was a great instrument. So even though I didn't choose it, I just loved it right away from the start in 6th grade. So that's how I got my start. What about you?
I do not come from a musical family at all, although my parents really like music, and we always had music on in the house, but they're not musicians at all, or anyone, other generations either. And I actually started on the clarinet, and then my band director needed some people to switch after a couple of years to some of the more unusual instruments to kind of fill out the band. And one of them was horn, and I thought it looked strange and cool, and I liked my odds of being first chair a lot better than in the clarinet section. So, and I did. I was first chair by 6 months in, so I'm still proud of that. And yeah, I really took to it. I had a great teacher in Ann Arbor, which is where I grew up, and he just kind of instilled this idea that it could be a thing that you actually do as your job, because he had been in the Chicago Symphony before teaching at the University of Michigan. And so that was, I think without his guidance, I wouldn't be doing it, because I wouldn't have thought that's a thing you can do, is go be a French horn player. So I'm always grateful to him that he was, gave me that ambition. So yeah, very good question. Any other questions before we do our last piece? Any? Yes, sir? Oh, perform in any grand venue in Europe. Have you? Yeah, okay. I don't think I have. I've played in kind of not so grand venues in Europe. But I'll let Megan tell her story.
Yeah, I went to school in Boston at the New England Conservatory, and I'm from the state of Maine, about an hour and a half north of Boston. Anyway, my parents, they schlepped me down to Boston every week for youth orchestra when I was in high school. And when I was a junior, my youth orchestra, we went to Vienna, Salzburg, and Budapest. And I think the biggest hall we played in was the one in Salzburg, the Mozarteum. So that was cool. And then later on, when I went to college, I joined a different youth orchestra that allowed college members, especially in the woodwind and brass section, to be members. And with that group, I literally went all over the world. I feel so lucky. My freshman year, we went on tour to Berlin, Prague, Switzerland. So the biggest hall we played in was the Berlin Philharmonie. That's where the Berlin Philharmonic plays. We got to listen to a concert the night before, and then we played a concert. And then the next year after that, same group, he took us to Spain, and we played all over Spain. And I think there was like 8 venues on that tour. So, yeah. And then I know it's not Europe, but I also performed in Russia in 2017. So Eastern Europe. And that was a really cool experience for me. I performed not with orchestra, but solo recitals with an exchange student. We did first in Boston, and then we did a week in Moscow and 5 days in St. Petersburg. So music has kind of taken us all over the world. It's been really cool. Yeah. Okay, well, if anyone else has any questions, just come up to us afterwards. And, you know, we're so glad you guys came out to our concert. And we're going to close with some jazzy numbers. These are the Bipperies by Lowell Shaw. So Bippery is what it's called. I think it's kind of just a made-up term he used. But basically, it helps French horn players with their jazz chops. So we're going to play, it's just called Bippery number 3. It's kind of like a waltzy jazz number. And if you guys really like it, we will play another Bippery. Okay, here we go. Thanks so much for coming. And by the way, thank you to Matt and Shirley for inviting us for this series. We have had such a great time, guys. Thank you so much.